It's the Easter season right now, and I've been really impacted by looking at and reading about the roads that Jesus walked that last week or two of his life that led to our freedom. And some of them are beautiful roads and life-giving and full of promise and expectation. And some of them are heartbreaking roads leading to pain and suffering and even death. And yet, his choice to walk these different roads is what led to our freedom as believers, because when we believe and receive the gift he gave by dying on the cross and coming to life again, we get to walk out the freedom story he bought for us. Hi, my name is Kirsten and I love Jesus. I love his word, and I get really excited about helping people move from exhaustion and burnout to the abundant life that God offers and receiving and accepting his gift of freedom. And that freedom was bought for us at the cross. And just looking at those roads that took Jesus from a place of meaningful ministry, of preaching and doing miracles and healing and raising up disciples, to the time that he decided it was time to die and it was time to buy our freedom. And we look at it, we know that Jesus only ministered for 3 years, and I'm sure we would have loved 30 or even more. It seems so short, but there came a time where he chose to walk this road. And we read about it in John chapter 11. Jesus hears one of his good friends, Lazarus, is sick and about to die. He gets word, and it's kind of the summons. He's good friends with Lazarus and his sisters, Mary and Martha, and they fully expect him to drop everything and come to them in Bethany and heal Lazarus. They know he can do it. They're confident of that. And as a close friend, come on, Jesus, let's go. And I've always noticed how he chose to wait 2 days before going. It says in John 11:5-6, Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. Yet when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And that's always been really surprising to me, and I imagine very hurtful to Lazarus and his family. But what I've noticed this time is it's totally expected by his disciples. They don't protest at all. They don't even bat an eye at this. And when we read back a chapter, we realize it's because Jesus left Jerusalem in that area on purpose. There had been death threats and attempts on his life in Jerusalem, and so he had left that area to go do ministry elsewhere. And the disciples were on board with this. They didn't want Jesus to die. They didn't expect him to die. They thought his ministry was worth preserving. And so moving away from Jerusalem was the logical thing to do. And going back, even for a sick friend, wasn't worth the risk of his life. So it's not until 2 days later, when he says to his disciples, let's go back to Judea, that the protests start. Verse 8, but Rabbi, they said, a short while ago the Jews tried to stone you, and yet you're going back there? Is Lazarus' life worth your own? And Jesus explains to them that walking in the light means not being afraid of darkness, and it means sometimes doing hard things. And so he tells them he is going back. And I love the statement of faith in 11 verse 16. Then Thomas said to the rest of his disciples, let us also go, that we might die with him. This is the moment where we see Jesus choose to go back to Jerusalem. This is the moment that will lead to his crucifixion. He knows it's going to be hard. In fact, even his disciples are aware that death is a real possibility, not only for Jesus, but for them. And I wonder what makes people make this choice. So many of us know what it means to feel trapped or to feel stuck or to feel like we are so far away from the abundant life that God promised us. Yet when we look at the road to freedom, it sometimes just seems too hard. I was reminded of this reading through Exodus. And in Exodus, God calls Moses to lead his people out of slavery into literal and physical freedom. And so the first thing that happens after Moses goes and asks for their freedom from Pharaoh is things get worse. They get a lot worse. Pharaoh gets angry. He doubles their workload. He removes some of the supports and the supplies that they were given, and things get a lot worse. And the people are understandably angry and frustrated. And they say, never mind, let's go back to the way things were. I don't want this. If this is what you call freedom, I want out. And with the benefit of hindsight, we can kind of look back and say, guys, It's going to be worth it. You will be free. Pharaoh will let you go. You're going to see God do amazing things, and you are going to get a new home where you are free and there's no more slavery. It's worth it. But in the moment when it's so difficult, they wanted out. They didn't want to walk this road. And as we're reading through Exodus, that's only the beginning. There's 12 plagues more to go. It's going to get worse before it gets better. And I think that's true of so many of our freedom stories, is you have to go through some really hard and difficult things before it gets better. And sometimes we're like those Israelites, where when those hard things happen, we just want to reverse. Forget this, forget the dream, forget the hope, forget the freedom story. Let's go back to where at least we knew what was expected of us. But Jesus knew what was expected of him, and he knew it was going to be horrible, and he chose to walk that road anyway. He knew in advance. Luke 18 verses 31 and 33 says this: Jesus took the 12 aside and told them, "We're going to go to Jerusalem, and everything written by the prophets of the Son of Man will be fulfilled. He will be handed out over to the Gentiles. They will mock him, insult him, spit on him, flog him, and kill him. On the third day, he'll rise again." He knew this was happening. He wasn't walking this road to Jerusalem naively or thinking that maybe it would work out in the end. He knew what he was going to do, and he chose to walk it anyway. In Luke 9:51, this is kind of the time where he's deciding he needs to go back. It says this: as the time approached for him to be taken up to heaven, Jesus resolutely set out for Jerusalem. In other versions, it says he set his face towards Jerusalem. There's a decision and there's a choice. And that's one that we have to make too. When we're walking those roads to freedom, it will get hard. Sometimes it will get a lot harder before it gets better. And I think we can take a page from Jesus's book, going, even when we know how bad it's going to be, if it leads to freedom, we make that resolution. We make that choice. We remind ourselves what it means to walk in the light instead of in darkness. And we take Jesus's hand and set our face towards Jerusalem, towards the freedom story that God has given us.